work sucks the life out of people, and it kind of sucks the purpose from people's lives, and it sucks resources from the planet. So the way that work is constructed, it does a lot of sucking and not a lot of actually giving.
Who doesn't want to be a great leader? A leader who's calm under pressure, insightful, respected, well-liked. But what does it take to become a great leader? Hey, I'm Boo, and welcome to my podcast. The Few Leadership Podcast defines great leadership and what great leadership looks like. And I've found some of the world's best leaders or experts in the field of leadership to help you accelerate your leadership journey so you can be an ace at the game of leadership. If you're ready to rethink everything you know about leadership, if you're excited about accelerating your leadership journey, let's strap in and ignite your leadership potential. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Few Leadership Podcast, the speaker series. And we have an absolute rock star on the show today. If there's one thing we love talking about as human beings, it's the future. What does the future hold? And if you read a newspaper, it's all doom and gloom, or politics are out of control, everyone's becoming extreme, we've got AI is going to steal our jobs. What's the point of being a human as we move into the full digital automation era? Josh Allan Dykstra, man, that's a mouthful for an Aussie. Hey, man, thanks so much for, and I don't even know how I got your first name wrong with a D, it's the same name as my son. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the Few Podcast. How you doing, man?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
A future of work speaker. Now, one of the cool things I think you've kind of put out into the world is that work does not need to suck. And I think that the average employee in a company would go, really? I'm kind of sure that it is kind of meant to suck, because that's certainly how it feels. How does work not suck?
Yeah, well, we can kind of attack this from a couple of different angles. So, when I talk about when I say this, obviously it's fun to say, right? Like work shouldn't suck, right? That's colloquially, fun to say.
I think that resonates. I think you kind of landed there. Yep.
Yeah, and it does, like viscerally. It's like, oh my God, all right, I've definitely been part of a job that sucked, right? And so we get that. But I want us to take it deeper, because this isn't just about kind of like the surface level term. Like really, I mean this pretty literally, that work sucks the life out of people, and it kind of sucks the purpose from people's lives, and it sucks resources from the planet, right? Like, so the way that work is constructed, it does a lot of sucking and not a lot of actually giving, right? It doesn't really give back. There's not anything about work that's regenerative. It just does a lot of taking. And I think this is a really, really big problem in terms of the future that we want to have, right? If we want a future that I think we can, like, there's some things I think we can agree on that we would like our future to be. And I don't think having the life sucked out of us and, the planet that's not uninhabitable, I don't think those things are things that we want. So I think we got to change the way we work.
You said something really important, right? You said it's not the world we want. It's not the way we want to work. And, I'm always fascinated around how an intention manages to manifest itself as an action. I don't think many people start a new job, for example, not excited, right? And you get that honeymoon period, you get that 3 months, it's all good. And then all of a sudden it sucks. And if you look at the literature, 76% of leaders are currently exploring a new job, right? Because they're burned out. They've got no energy left. They're tired, thinking that, if I just go somewhere else, it's going to change. But it's not going to change, is it?
Probably not, right? Like the odds are not in your favor. Because most organizations are all running the same operating system, which is extractive. And it really does just like take from the humans. It's like the Matrix, right? You remember that movie, The Matrix?
Yeah,
right? It's like we plug into the humans and they're like batteries for the machine. Like that's actually a pretty good metaphor for work, like the operating system of work. Because that's kind of what it does, is it takes the energy from the humans to keep the machine running. Now, it doesn't have to be this way, right? There's some organizations that don't do it this way. And it turns out those are the places where people actually like to be, right? Those are the places where people say, yeah, I love my job. Sadly, statistically, it's just not a majority of companies.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, when I was a fighter pilot, it's considered a cool job, right? But part of it did suck. And part of it is, we used to have this phrase called the SLJ, the shitty little job. And part of that and how we were sort of mentored from our leaders was you've got to find joy in the SLJs. Like there is no world devoid of SLJs. So when you say the future, work doesn't have to suck, let's kind of nuance that a little bit. Are there parts of work that are always going to suck, but we can counterbalance it with parts of work, or is a suck-free zone completely possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think part of this is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if we believe that certain parts of work just suck, they're going to suck, they're all like forever and always, then they do, right? They persist that way. So part of this is our own belief system. My mentor, Terry, says it's all BS. It's all belief systems, right? So we have this belief system, right? Yeah. It's so good. Right? We have these belief systems that then like create the future in the way that we want or the way that we don't, depending on the way that what we're actually believing. And so I think some of these SLJs are belief system things that you actually could fix if you believed you could. And so the other thing that happens in here too is that we have this bias. We have this assumption that other people have the same SLJs that we do, right? And so this is a faulty assumption. And so we think other people are going to think that that's a shitty little job, when for them, it's actually one of their favorite things to do. And and our assumption is what prevents that from getting fixed, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make it's sounding a little mindset-y in that, you come in with that mindset that this is going to suck, it's always going to suck, rather than this could be a temporary thing, or maybe there's someone else in here that might enjoy it. I mean, some people, I hate admin, right? I'm pretty sure you may be the same if you're doing speaking and coming up with big ideas. You hate to get bogged down in the details, right? And slow any friction. Whereas other people, that's their vibe, right? They just
that's their magic
to show up and check boxes and reconcile accounts, and they get that sense of achievement by 1 + 1 equaling 2. When did you kind of figure this out? What made you kind of figure this out and come to this conclusion?
Well, let's see. So I started out kind of in the world of positive psychology and the strengths-based movement, of a couple decades ago, and it was really compelling to me. I just thought this idea of focusing more on what's right with us instead of all of the crap that's wrong with us, I just found that just completely magnetic. And so I thought, I want more of that, right? I want to know how to make that work. And so there's this whole study, right, of what they call positive psychology. It's the study of a flourishing, thriving human life, which is, of course, not the same as just doing the opposite of all of the, the crap that sucks the life out of us, or the pathologies that are in our histories. So it's a completely different study. And so that's kind of where I started. And eventually I came across this approach that was more focused on human energy. And to me, this was the next frontier for positive psychology, because we can talk about strengths and weaknesses, but that doesn't go far enough.
So sorry to interrupt here, but I just quickly want to put the woo-woo alarm on, right? And I call it the woo-woo alarm because, having worked a lot in the execution side of a business, train drivers, truck drivers, people driving forklifts, middle-level managers, they're gonna hear that word human. I'm a big believer in this, right, myself. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Good. Some people might think human energy is like a little bit like woo-woo. How is it not woo-woo, and how is it real?
Yeah. So of course, this is something I talk about a lot, right? So in the world and we use energy in all sorts of, right? We use that word energy in all sorts of different ways. It's very contextual. It can be very strange, right? It can take people to the place of like crystals and healers, but it also can be like petroleum and oil and the stuff that like powers all of the things that move on the planet, right? Or it can be renewable energy, or it can be, the way that plants process the sunlight is an energy transfer, right? So there's all sorts of ways we use this word. I think what I like to recommend is people remember, like, go back to your like high school, like, early school science classes, where the physics definition, when we're talking about this in a physics way, the physics definition of energy is the capacity to do work, which I think means that energy is highly relevant for our work, right? Like, so if we understand energy properly, we understand that nothing moves without energy. And everything that you want to do in your organization requires movement. Everything, right? If you want to like move your truck down the street, you're going to need some energy to make that happen, right? If you want to get a team reconfigured to do a project, you want to get this project across the line, or if you want to do anything, it requires movement, which requires energy. So we just, I think, need a deeper understanding or maybe remembering of like what energy actually is. Right?
Yeah.
It really is the thing that makes things move. And that, right, is something that we need a lot more of in our organizations.
And I think a lot of people would be familiar with, I just don't have the energy to do this, right?
Totally.
I run out of energy. Yeah.
Well,
a conversation at home all the time.
Well, this is the funniest part of this is that the only thing that we understand about human energy is when we don't have it. Like, so I've been studying this for 15 years, and this is the thing I've noticed, right? Like, we never talk about human energy. We don't think about human energy until we don't have it, right? When we're sick, what do we want? More energy, right? When you're tired, depleted, exhausted, what do you want? More energy. You want to live the life that you want to live. You need energy to do it. And that's the only time we think about it, though. And in our organizations, we actually have a word for this. We got a fancy word. It's called burnout. So we know, right? We know burned out workforce doesn't actually create the outcomes we want. We get it. We understand that, but we're still not talking about human energy to actually power the movement and change that we want to make. And of course, change is just everywhere. It's constant. You cannot avoid change at this moment in history, especially. So you need a lot of energy if you're going to like keep up, much less, get ahead.
I want to go back to sorry, everyone listening. This is just a personal kind of thing I have with positive psychology. My kids went to a school, my older ones, in Australia. They had Geelong Grammar was like the first school in Australia that embraced pos psy as part of its syllabus. And my kids would have buckets in the classroom of low energy, high energy. What did this person do to fill my cup today? What did this person do to empty my cup, to build awareness? It was pretty cool. But I've just got one thing about positive psychology. It's good to be positive and have a positive mindset, but somewhere in there, you got to get results. Or I feel like your brain kind of feels like you're not being genuine, like you're being positive, but you're not getting the results. Tell me a little bit about the relationship between the psychology of being positive, but then how people kind of fall into the trap of into the suck. Like, I genuinely think some people wonder this. They're like, hey, I'm positive. I do my positive affirmations. I journal, but stuff still sucks. What's missing?
Yeah. Well, the what's missing is the work, right. Like I just watched a TED Talk yesterday, and this woman with disabilities was talking about, that no amount of positive attitude is actually like making things right. It's not enough, right? So kind of to your point. And she said, no amount of smiling at a flight of stairs ever turned it into a wheelchair ramp. Right. And I was like, yeah, right. Like that's right. So the attitude, the positive, like it's where it starts, but it's not where it finishes. Right. Like we need to start with that mindset, that there's things we can find in here that are positive, but then we need to use that as fuel to like help us do the thing, because otherwise it's just like intentions and, attitudes, right? Like, yes, important, beautiful, but if it doesn't actually move you into the action, I have issues with it also. So I think, we got to follow that up.
And then I think you get the problem of expectation management, right? Like the positive psychology is, I want to be the CEO, but I'm 21 years of age, right? And sure, there's the odd CEO who's 21 years of age. Get it. I met a spiritual healer once, and he said, the biggest limiting belief in a human being is anything that starts with the word I or me. I deserve, I want this, I should have. And immediately, everything becomes personal rather than objective. What are some techniques? I'm going to go back to energy soon, because I've definitely got something I want to ask you about energy. But what are some of the techniques or ways of thinking people can have in terms of, having those big aspirations, but I guess the toil of the work to get there?
Yeah. And this is where I think I'm going to bring the energy thing back in here, because I think it's really important. This is where I think this becomes a helpful perspective, is because there's lots of shit that needs to get done, right? We've got a lot of stuff to do. What I think positive psychology is really good for is teaching us how to go about doing those things that need to get done, because there's going to be certain approaches that make me feel more energized and in a flow state. And when I'm in a flow state, almost everyone agrees that when we're in flow states, we're more productive, right? I get more done when I'm in that state. And so from my perspective, the goal is simple, not easy, but simple, right? It's to get yourself into a flow state when you're doing your highest and best work. And that is where you get the most productivity, right? So I think what this approach does, we call this building energy intelligence. And so if you can build your energy intelligence, you can find ways into the task that are more likely to put you in a flow state, which means you're just going to do it a lot better. And so I think that's what we're kind of after.
And flow really is the least amount of energy for the maximum amount of output, right? It's the distractions, it's the constant toil reactions, bouncing around like a pinball each and every day. What's your practice to get into a flow state?
I think the first thing that we need to really understand better is what energizes us, right? So when I ask people about their energizers, right, they take me lots of places. Right? They say, "Oh, I want to go. I love going to the beach, Josh." Right? I love take me to the golf course, or like hanging out with my kids, or that they take me lots of places. They never take me to their desk at work when I ask. Right? They don't think about it. Right? So when it comes to work, it's like, here's a list of all the crap that sucks the life out of me. Right? That's what I can give you at work. But we have very low understanding or awareness of the actual activities that are likely to put us into that flow state because they bring us energy. And so I think the first part here is just like starting to do some reflection on, okay, when I do these things, I feel really good, right? Again, I have probably a long list of stuff that when I do, I feel bad, but like start by looking, okay, when I do these things, I feel like I'm energized and in flow. Most people that I've met need a way higher intelligence around that part of themselves. This is a big blind spot for most people. And until you address that, you're kind of shooting in the dark, right? Like you don't know what things to do more of, right? You probably know some things to avoid, but you don't really know what to do more of. And so I'd say that is a huge part of my practice, has been learning what those things are and then just putting more of those things in my day, or like using that to craft the kind of work life that I want to have. Right? If once I know what those things are, I can just like try to stack my day up with those things and try to minimize all the crap that sucks the life out of me.
If you're enjoying the show, I'd just like to ask of you a little favor. We're on a mission here to ignite the world's leadership potential. We need to reach out to as many leaders as we possibly can. So if you're enjoying the show, I just ask you to leave a review, to subscribe, to help introduce this podcast to other leaders to join you on your journey to flawless leadership. We're going to head back to the episode now. I hope you've enjoyed what you've learned today. Please remember, let's ignite a movement of flawless leaders. Subscribe, leave a review. Let's get back to the show. Some of that might be a decision to go somewhere else, right? Like you might be in a place where it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to suck because it doesn't to segue into the next, I guess, philosophy that you embrace is purpose, right? Where I love the analogy of the big plasma balls at the museum that just have energy going everywhere. And the minute you put one finger on the ball and one focus point, all the energy just goes towards that one thing. And I feel like the more we can do that as a human, put one finger on the brain, the energy ball, and forge the neural pathways and create that focus, the more efficient the energy is going to be. But layer in purpose for me, because I know a lot of leaders, they get this, right? They understand that people want to work in an organization and feel that there's purpose behind it. But it seems to be elusive. There's a lot of purposeful companies out there where I worked with just a couple of weeks ago, a company that everyone wants to work for, Google, right? Everyone thinks it's the best place ever. Free food, free everything, work from home, but at the end of the session, we had an awful lot of leaders come up that are saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. I'm worried technology is going to engineer me out of a job. So how do you help organizations with this purpose thing?
Yeah, I don't actually do a lot of work on this topic specifically, but I do have some thoughts about it. So one, I recommend that organizations think about purpose more like a magnet. If you're an organization, or if you're a leader in an organization, what you need is a magnetic calling for people to go towards. Because to your point, if you put your finger on something, say like the energy, right? Energy needs a direction, right? This, right? So your magnet, like your organizational mission should be magnetic enough that people want to move towards it. And a lot of organizations could do much better just by doing that, right? Like a lot of like a lot of organizations started with a good mission, but then they just kind of like devolve. They forget about it. It kind of deteriorates. And it's just like, now we're just doing crap all day long and we don't really know why or what for. And so organizational leaders, I think would do well to actually remind people continuously about why the hell we're doing this, right? Like make it magnetic and people will move towards it. So that's, again, it's simple, but not easy to do because it requires a lot of repetition and modeling.
Once a week in a meeting, just go, hey guys, I want to remind you all why you're here. And it goes back to your pulse thigh, or it goes back to your intentionality, which is, I guess, like anything. I mean, we tend to, as human beings, get sucked down into work, right? Like we're very, I just want my hands to be busy. I actually don't really care what it's doing, but I feel like being busy is more important than being effective. So, so what can a leader do to, I guess the point is there's a consciousness that comes with this. Like it doesn't happen by accident, right? You don't put your purpose at the top of your strategy document presented at the annual event and leave it there. How do you find your intentionality every day? Because, I would imagine as a practitioner of this, you must be the most efficient, energy focused human being on the planet.
I try, this is right. It's simple stuff to understand, but it can be hard stuff to practice, right? Because it is like a little bit of like a workout, right? Going to the gym, doing your workout, doing your yoga, whatever your workout is, like the practice of it isn't all that sexy, right? Especially after you've done it for a month or 2 months or a year or 10 years, right? It's just like the keeping doing of anything is kind of difficult and challenging. And so, but this helps me though too, to have a clear sense of, what am I after? I try to do this in kind of yearly resets, right? So I've got an idea of these are the goals or the objectives, or, this year I'm really playing with trying to frame up identity goals. Like this year, one of my goals that I set at the beginning of the year was framed in the identity of I am a health guy. And for me, that kind of like, it gave me an identity to shoot for, and there's goals underneath that, right? So like if I'm going to be that guy, if I'm going to be a health guy, then I do certain things, right? The health guy does these things to be that. And so I'm playing with that all the time.
You make decisions in the moment, right? Like you can say, well, I really want to do this, but this isn't health guy. Like going to McDonald's right now that's not what health guy would do, right?
Yeah, so health guy wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
So future of work. This is, an incredibly hot button topic at the moment, and it's AI, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like when we talk about future of work, we can talk about the woo-woo, and we can talk about being connected and psychology, but the reality is everyone is terrified of AI. So tell me a little bit about how you paint the future and the near future and the far future.
Yes, I think the question that seems to be happening right now really does surround AI and what's happening. And I when I'm talking about this, I feel like there's a number of things to address, right? So I think there's just a wide variety of experience levels, right? Some people out there, like they've heard about it, or they see it on the news, or they see it online or whatever, but they've never tried one of these, like, LLM chatbot thing, right? They've never even done it, right? But they know of it because it's getting so much media attention, right? It's just like in the air, but they haven't really experienced it personally. Whereas other people are like using these things every day and it's now their best friend. And, so it's just like we have such a wide variety of experience levels. We have such a wide variety of technology understanding, right? Some people are like, oh my goodness, yeah, like I don't even know what LLM stands for, right? And other people are like autoaggressive, right? Technology that's just so boring and passe in last year, and right. So it's just like, so I think getting a level set kind of understanding for people is part of what I try to do, because I think once people have a little more understanding of what's actually going on, it helps with the anxiety level. And this is true for anything, right? I fly a lot, right? Like as a consultant, right? Back when I was running a consulting firm, and there was a period of time when I got really scared of flying. And what I did is I went online and I took a class where I like learned more about how the planes stay in the air. And I was like, oh, this is like physics. Like it makes the planes want to be in the air, right? And I felt a lot better. And so learning more about something really can help us like tone down the fear. And so I think the first thing I tell people is like, you got to move into it, right? You can't just like stay on the outside of this. That's not going to help your anxiety level. Like you've got to like move into it, try it out. And then you really got to like, if once you learn more about the technology, at least from my perspective, you'll find experts right on all sides of this debate. But I don't see us being anywhere near any kind of like artificial general intelligence with what's happening right now. Like I think people can maybe just take a breath and be like, there's other stuff that we should be dealing with right now because it is going to displace jobs. That part is true. And so we need to be thoughtful about like where we go, right? So if the AI comes, into my space where my job is, which for I think most kinds of knowledge work, it's coming for at least part of your job.
Yeah.
Where do you go?
You're in the reporting, shuffling information around an organization job. You're probably not going to be doing that in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the important question is, where do we go? Right? Like what things do you need to upskill? Like what mindsets do you need to upskill? Like, so that I think becomes really more the helpful perspective for us to kind of take on this topic, which we can talk more about if you want.
Well, and I think also, you don't even need to subscribe to a platform anymore. I mean, you can jump on Copilot or Gemini. And I was again speaking to the Google guys. This is like literally the 800 software engineers, leaders of the whole business, and they're telling me like they just ask AI and say, "Hey, here's my job. Are you going to replace me? And what can I do to make sure I have a job using you as a tool?" And it basically spells out what you need to upskill, how you use AI, what strengths I have, what weaknesses I have. And even just prompting that one question is going to give you some form of relief from your anxiety, right?
It's funny that you bring this up. I literally push publish on an article yesterday where I made that recommendation, right? I said, this is what's going on. Like I actually recommended like take this article, copy and paste it into your GPT and then ask that question. Say, how do I future-proof myself? I think it's such a great technique. I really do.
Yeah. One of the, again, recurring themes with people that hang around leaders for a while or effectively live in line with their purpose is they just embrace curiosity, right? Like they're not really looking for a very specific destination, but just get curious. Like you got curious. How does Bernoulli's effect work on a wing to hold the airplane up in the air? I bet when you first started flying, you just didn't think about it, right? You hopped on and then all of a sudden, being curious-minded, you start to look around, you hit some turbulence, and you're like, how is this actually suspended in air? Like, what?
Right. How is this working? Yeah.
Why is it not falling out of the sky right now? And, people, if you are afraid of flying, just a quick one, these things are built to fly hella worse conditions than you're ever going to be, ever be on an airplane. What are some of the other things we need to consider as leaders in the future of work?
I think one of the biggest things for people to consider is that these technologies are quite intelligent. Right? There's a lot of intelligence in there. There's a lot of, right, we've fed it a lot of data for it to do the kind of magical language-based things that it does. And it has a lot of intelligence, but that doesn't mean it's wise. It doesn't mean it has wisdom in how to use its intelligence. So I like to think of these LLM technologies. So LLM, for anybody, right, is a large language model, right? So LLM is what you're interacting with if you're using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or something. Right? Most likely your interaction point with what people are calling AI is actually more appropriately called an LLM. So if you're engaging with one of these things, though, I like to think of them almost like the little droids from Star Wars, right? Like not like the C3PO droid, but like the little ones who like polish your spaceship and like kind of fall over.
Yeah, the R2D2.
Right? Like the little guys. And I think of LLMs like this, right? If you think about them like your droids, it's like they're good. There's a lot of smarts in there, right? There's a lot of like intelligence to let them do what they do. But they don't really have any wisdom in knowing like what they should do or where they should go or what they should focus, right? You got to really give them direction. And so I think this becomes the key. If you're wondering where you go as a human, right, in this new world, you need to become a person who gives direction to these machines. So one of my favorite metaphors for this is actually an air traffic controller. So I think this is such a perfect metaphor for what like we need way more air traffic controllers for AI. because they don't know where to fly or what to do, or like, but we can become really efficient. Like we can manage hundreds or thousands of planes in the air as a good air traffic controller, but we're not trying to micromanage what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. But we're making sure they're working on the right things and they're going to the right places. Right. And they're safely landing. And so, right. Like, so this, I think, becomes, but it becomes all about direction giving, sense making, wisdom, imagination, right? These are not things that your technology does. These are things that humans do. And so you can we need to up level a little bit, get ourselves out of the weeds of the tasks, because that's where the human work that you probably want to do is going.
It's kind of the work that sucks. That's what they're good at, right?
Hopefully, right? Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully this will become the discussion, right? Where it's like we can start to separate what makes a quote job that kind of sucks, right? Maybe we can actually start to give some of those things to the machines. And then more of us can be more involved in what I might call meaningful work, which people actually love.
But it's again though, but it does highlight a challenge for human beings around our propensity to be busy and work, as opposed to be destination focused, to say that this airplane needs to go from Boston to Charleston. That in itself, I think, is quite a human mind shift.
It is,
compared to the way that we approach things now. I think,
I agree.
We have this traditional model, which is like, welcome to our company. This is your role. And this is the stuff that you do, rather than say, this is your role. Why don't you figure out the best way to do it?
I know. It is going to be a big transition. It's going to be messy and it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I love it.
I think that's where it goes.
We in Afterburner, we call it destination-led leaders, where it's your whole mindset is around the destinations you're going to, not how you're going to get there. You can fill it in and put some humans in there, but AI will give you the kind of direction. One of the things I do want to ask you, because I've realized on a couple of podcasts the AGI has been mentioned, but I don't think I've ever bothered to ask anyone, what is it? I watched a documentary the other day that scared the crap out of me, because it said in 2 years we're going to have AGI and AI is going to start to lie to us. It's going to cheat. It's going to do all sorts of nasty stuff because it's going to have AGI. So what is AGI?
Yeah, sorry, I threw out that acronym earlier and it didn't really, thank you for coming back to it. So AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. And the problem with this label is that every expert you talk to is going to define it in a slightly different way. And so it really is a mess of categorization. Nobody really agrees on what AGI is. In general, I think people might say that this is some sort of AGI is when the technology can do everything a human can do. So so that might be the best kind of definition that may get some consensus amongst
Did you mean
AI people.
Do you mean thinking as opposed to just doing as directed?
Well, this is where experts start to split, right? And so the ones that I really appreciate actually make it about doing. So they would say that we're not there until these machines can actually do, they can output, work output as well as a human can do, which we're remarkably far away from that, especially in many occupations like trades and right. We just don't have robotics that can do anything like that kind of stuff. And sometimes there are these kind of quantum leaps, right, forward, where we get to see things come online that surprise us. And so I don't know if it's out of the question, but currently they're still wrestling with some pretty meaty problems in terms of how to make these things output work at the quality level that a human could do in certain things. And then in other things, right, it's got all this intelligence and language, and it can do things, in things that exceed human capabilities in some way, right? So, but it really depends on the type of work you're trying to do and the outcome you're trying to create.
But the bottom line is, as it stands at the moment, don't be too anxious. Don't be too afraid. Nothing's going to happen completely out of the blue. You're going to have some time to work a solution here.
Yeah, my advice, is to not waste too much energy on the anxiety part of it. Spend more of your time and energy and focus on this upskilling thing, right? Because to your point a few minutes ago, this is a big shift, right? If it really does come for the outputs of knowledge work, right? Like so many of us are doing those things. Like that's what we think of as work, is creating these documents and like these PowerPoint decks and like, or like that is what we do, and checking our emails and right. Like, that's what we call work, is doing all that crap. And if that gets minimized, what are you doing? Right. Like I think that like
that's the question. What are you doing?
That is a more important thing for you to spend your time and energy on, is like, how do you up level yourself? Because that's where you want to go.
You can probably ask AI, give you a few tips as well.
I think you should.
It is amazing. This I'm getting some shelves built, and a carpenter asked me to measure it all out. And for an experiment, I just put all the measurements into my ChatGPT thread today, and it just gave me a beautiful picture of my shelves with all the dimensions that I just sent him as a picture instead of like loads and loads of words. I was blown away with. I'm constantly blown away with what it's actually capable of doing.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. It really does. That stuff is going to make our lives more efficient, and that's pretty cool.
Okay, now the downside of all this must be that everything gets faster. I mean, if we're turning information around faster, if our ideas you could literally write a business plan for an idea and have a fully investment grade paper written for you in 45 seconds, right? How do we deal with that speed? Like, how do we go from AI giving us 6 different ways to do the same thing? I mean, I just feel like we could just end up being so overwhelmed by the speed of all this that it's really hard to not fall back into anxiety.
Yeah, I think I was just with a group of executives, pretty high level executives at a pharma company in Boston. And this is what we found ourselves kind of coming back to over and over, is if you kind of buy into my premise here, right? And that the place for humans to go is this up-leveling, this upskilling into this place of wisdom and imagination and, air traffic controlling. What do you need as a human to actually be there? And so, right, as people think about this, what they realize is they need a lot more space. They need a lot more time. They need more margins around the things, right? Right. So right now we're kind of go, do, push through, power, like all the time. I think what we're going to see, if we want to create the kind of world that I think we want, is that we're going to actually need to create the space, or we're going to need to create these margins. We're going to need to create some buffers for ourselves. We need more think time. Right? Because otherwise, you're right. Like we could be overwhelmed, and like the speed, like to your point, the speed at which the GPT like comes back at me, right? When I ask it a question, it's insane how quickly it processes really complex things. But what I find then is like, I need to like stop, right? Like I need to actually like take some time and like go for a walk and like think about it and not feel like I need to be as fast as that thing is, because I'm not going to be a good air traffic controller. Right? I'm not going to have any kind of wisdom if I try to operate at that speed. So
what you've done, you've brought intentionality to it again to say that's the fast part. That's going to get me to a conclusion that I then need to think about. And the good news is now I've got the thinking about time, not the 4 hours of scouring the internet trying to support my thesis.
Yeah. And that's where it kind of opens up, I think, more work that humans will actually find meaningful.
Yeah, I love it. I think you're spot on. Hey, Josh, just coming towards short finals here. Air traffic control's about to put us back on the deck. What are the top 3 things a leader needs to be mindful of now then in terms of being prepared for the future of work?
Okay. So first, I think there is a mandatory journey for everybody to go on to build their energy intelligence. This is too low for most people. Like most people don't know what brings them energy at work. Don't be one of those people, right? Like start to build your energy intelligence. You can do this pretty easily. You just need to start getting more in touch with your body's actually a really great energy detector, right? It knows, it feels when the life's being sucked out of you, or when you're kind of approaching a flow state, right? When you're in the zone, right? Your body knows, it tells you. Most of us just ignore that. So I'm saying don't ignore that. Like start to pay attention, build your energy intelligence, because then the next thing you're going to want to do is start to build a life for yourself, build a career, build a job that actually does more of those things that energize you. Like, nobody's going to do this for you, right? Here's the news, right? Like, nobody's going to hand you a job description with a list of your energizers on it. That's not how this works.
Yeah, never going to happen.
You have to do this, right? And you can. But in order to do that, you first need to know kind of what your battery's made of, right? So once you know that, then you start kind of putting these things in your path. And you say, I want to do more of these things, less of those things. You can get really tactical about it. Get really like focused and say, these are the actual activities I need to do because those things bring me energy. And then I would say the third thing might be to really pay attention as to how you use your energizers to upskill into the future that's coming, right? So how do you, right? So learn your energizers and then start to put them in your path, but then create a path to help you upskill into this place of wisdom and imagination and sense making and the things that the world needs from humans. Like, figure out how to use your energizers to go in that direction.
Love it.
That's what
awesome.
That's what I would say.
Awesome. Josh Allan Dykstra, thank you so much for sharing your energy with us today. And also, giving us just some practical ideas as leaders to embrace and get ourselves fit for the future. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone was feeling the same way when their horse-drawn cart logistics business was being disrupted by new Ford trucks. It's an inevitability. Hey, Josh, for those that are on a commute and they can't read the show notes and all of Josh's details below this podcast in the show notes, how can people find you, mate?
Yeah, two great places. You can go to my website, which is joshallan.com. So that's just make sure you spell Allan right. It's 2 A's and 2 L's. So joshallan.com. Or you just find me on LinkedIn. I think that's the other great place. Just do a search for Josh Allan Dykstra. You'll find me there. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. And yeah, I'd love to meet you and chat.
Awesome, Josh. That was fantastic, mate. Again, so much gratitude for you taking the time to come on the show today. Everybody, if you enjoyed this, we are just getting some Class A guests on the show now. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review below, like it, subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube, so we can bring more goodness and ignite the leadership potential around the world. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you. Appreciate it.